My name is Andy Geeter. I'm Vice President of Enrollment Management at Andrew College. I want to thank you for being here for our financial aid session. We're actually splitting this session up into 3 different sections, each one about 10 to 12 minutes long. Hopefully this will provide you a little bit easier access if you choose to go back and look at the information later. So we're going to go ahead and get started with session 1, which is financial aid eligibility and what is financial aid. So I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to go to our spring session. I'm going to go ahead and start that. So again, welcome to Spring Preview Day. This first session is just entitled, What is Financial Aid? So just give some of the basic overview information. First, common misconception that most students receive no money to assist with college. Okay. In particular, with private colleges like Andrew, that is not the case. Almost all of our students receive some sort of aid from us and also from other sources as well. But in order to access that aid, you have to go through the process. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that process in session 2. So what is financial aid? Financial aid, very simply, is money to help afford the cost of college. It tends to come in 4 forms: grants, scholarships, loans, and work study. Now, grants and scholarships typically do not have to be repaid, but there's sometimes specific qualifications to receive them. For example, if you're a Georgia resident and your student is eligible for the Hope Scholarship, that student needs to have a grade point average of at least 3.0 coming out of high school. However, to receive the Georgia Tuition Equalization Grant, the student must be a Georgia resident attending a Georgia private college, but there's not a GPA requirement tied to it. So again, there may be different requirements for scholarships and grants. Some may require full-time attendance. Some may have options for part-time attendance. Some, like athletic scholarships, for example, are going to be dependent upon the student continuing to play the sport. If it's a scholarship that is tied to a particular activity, again, it's going to be dependent upon that student continuing the activity. Loans. This is always a big discussion. Loans typically must be repaid. Okay. Now, there is talk about loan cancellation at the federal level. Nothing is in place for that. They have done a series of halts to financial aid loan repayment. The latest one is extended through August of 31st. That does not mean cancellation. Again, you'll have to follow and see what goes on with the federal government to determine whether or not they do loan cancellation and what that's going to mean for students. Unfortunately, for right now, cost of a college education, or the cost of a college education that you want, is just not possible without loans. For some students it is, and that's fantastic. But for many others, it's not. So, some good news. Typically, if a student takes loans, completes their college work, most of them have very little problem paying them off over the course of the life of the loan repayment. That's good news. Some people do, but most do not. Where students really find themselves getting in trouble is students who take out loans and then don't complete college. They drop out because loan repayments can be deferred until a student graduates or is out of school for 6 months. So if a student just simply leaves college, decides not to come back, after 6 months, any loans that they've taken are going to start to come due and repayment will begin. Another thing to consider is the amount of money a student can borrow while they're an undergraduate student in the first 4 years is limited. When you hear stories about people taking out $200,000 and $300,000 in student loans, know that that is typically someone doing a graduate degree or a specific degree like a law degree or a medical degree. It is not someone doing a four-year bachelor's program in business, for example. Some students are eligible to have a portion of their interest paid by the government while they're in college. That would be a subsidized loan. Up to $3,500 of a student's loan per year can be subsidized as a freshman. What that means is that loan is used to make up a portion of that student's financial need. I'll talk about financial need here in just a couple of minutes. As I mentioned, the majority of students are able to successfully pay off their loans. Where you get in trouble is when they quit without getting a degree. Now, another thing that we offer at Andrew and many other colleges is college work study. And what this does is give a chance for students to work on campus through the Federal College Work Study Program. Some schools have their own work program. We have that to a limited extent. For example, if a student is working for the admission office, then typically it's going to be a part of the Federal Work Study Program. However, if they are working as a tutor in our IWRC, our IWRC, Interdisciplinary Writing and Reading Center, or in our SSC, our Student Success Center, those are typically going to be institutional positions that will not be paid for by federal money, but by institutional money. The big difference here is for a student to receive federal work study, they must have remaining financial need. I'll explain need here in just a couple of minutes. Whereas if a student is doing tutoring through our institutional work program, they don't necessarily have to have unmet financial need. So that's the end of the first part of this. We're going to go into the second part here in just a moment, and that will be the basics of financial aid. So join me back here in just a moment.